Imagine you are crying in front of someone. You can hide what happened. You can insist you are fine. You can say absolutely nothing. But the tears have already betrayed you. They are an involuntary signal that is almost impossible for another human brain to ignore. And that may be exactly why emotional crying exists. Because long before humans could explain their pain with words, tears may have been how we convinced other people not to leave us alone. You cry when you are heartbroken. You cry when you are relieved. You can cry from frustration, joy, grief, or the stress of holding everything together until one tiny thing goes wrong. And the strange part is this: none of those feelings live in your eyes. They live in your brain. Your tear glands sit quietly in your face doing basic housekeeping, keeping your eyes moist and clean. Then something happens inside your mind, and those glands suddenly start pouring liquid down your cheeks, like they have been waiting their whole lives to join the conversation. Animals absolutely have feelings. A dog can mourn its owner. An elephant can stand beside a dead relative and touch the bones years later. A chimpanzee can scream in despair. They vocalize, they posture, they touch each other, they show distress in ways that are very real. Ahem. But as far as science can tell right now, they do not produce tears that are clearly and consistently tied to emotion the way humans do. Their tears, when they happen, are functional. Lubrication, irritation, protection. Yours can be that too. But they can also be something else entirely. A visible broadcast of whatever is happening inside your head. To understand why that matters, you have to separate two different kinds of crying. The first kind is strictly mechanical. Your eyes dry out, so your body produces basal tears to keep the cornea smooth and protected. Dust gets in your eye, onion vapors rise from a cutting board, smoke drifts past you. Your body produces reflex tears to flush the irritant out. None of that is emotional. It is maintenance. You could be in a perfectly neutral mood, thinking about sandwich ingredients, and your eyes will still water. That kind of crying is almost universal among mammals. It is the second kind that makes you weird. Emotional tears happen when nothing is wrong with your eye and everything is happening in your life. Someone says something that hits you harder than you expected. You see a scene in a movie that suddenly pulls a thread you did not know was still attached. You hold yourself together through a crisis and then dissolve in the quiet safety afterwards. The trigger is psychological, but the response is physical. Heart rate changes, breathing shifts, your face tightens, and your eyes begin to overflow. You could stop yourself from yelling. You could keep your voice steady. You can even keep your body still. The tears, though, often come whether you want them to or not. Here is the part that seems almost too convenient to be an accident. Emotional tears do not look exactly like reflex tears. They have a slightly different chemical composition, with higher concentrations of certain stress-related substances. They fall down your face in a way that is very hard for another human to miss. They redden your eyes, puff your lids, and leave streaks on your skin. It is as if your body is deliberately sabotaging your ability to hide distress. You are designed to leak your feelings onto the most visible part of your body. From an evolutionary standpoint, that is a strange choice. If you are a prey animal, showing weakness publicly is dangerous. If you are a predator, losing composure might get you injured. Evolution is not sentimental. It does not add features because they are poetic. It adds them because, in some environments, they keep you or your offspring alive long enough to reproduce. So if emotional tears are costly, blurring your vision, making you physically less prepared to fight or run, then they must have carried some compensating benefit that mattered more than immediate performance. That benefit almost certainly has to do with other people. Humans are a group species. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors survived not by being the strongest individual in a vacuum, but by being part of a group that defended, fed, and healed each other. A lone human on a savanna with no tools and no allies is lunch. A small group of humans watching each other and coordinating their responses can drive predators away, share food, and keep injured members alive long enough to matter. In that world, anything that helps one person honestly signal their need to the group has real survival value. Language is a powerful signal, but it came late. The earliest humans did not have complex speech. Even after speech evolved, you can lie with words. You can say, "I'm fine," while your nervous system is falling apart. You can downplay injury, conceal fear, Pretend you are stronger than you are. Emotional tears are harder to fake and harder to conceal. Your face literally shows water where no water should be. Another brain sees this, and, even if it does not consciously think, this person is in distress, it responds. People lean in. They soften their voice. They either move closer or look away, because the intensity is too much. In all cases, the signal has been received. Ahem. This is probably the central function of human crying. It forces an interaction. If you imagine a small ancient camp, someone silently in pain with no visible signs could continue working, walk away from the group, or sit in the shadows. Their suffering might remain invisible. Someone openly crying becomes the center of attention whether they like it or not. Others have to decide what to do. Comfort, ignore, challenge, but they cannot pretend not to notice. Tears drag private feelings into public space. There is also a dominance angle. In many social mammals, signals of submission reduce aggression. A dog that rolls onto its back exposes its belly and throat, showing it is not a threat. A subordinate chimp quiets posture and avoids eye contact. Emotional crying may be a human version of an extreme submission signal. You are temporarily disarmed. Your vision is blurred. Your face is contorted. You are clearly not in fighting form. In a tense situation, crying can de-escalate conflict by showing that whatever is happening has already pushed you beyond any interest in continuing the struggle. Parents and caregivers are another part of the story. Human infants are unusually helpless compared to other mammals. They take years to become even somewhat self-sufficient. That helplessness did not end when bodies grew stronger. Human adults often find themselves in states of emotional or physical vulnerability where they cannot handle everything alone. Crying can recruit help. A person injured, overwhelmed, or grieving who cries is more likely to draw supportive attention in a cooperative social environment. When you put this pattern into evolutionary terms, individuals who could strongly trigger others' caregiving instincts in moments of crisis might have had better odds of surviving that crisis. There is a reason tears are often tied not just to pain, but to relief. Think about the times you have cried most intensely. Often it is not when something goes wrong, but when something finally stops going wrong. When you get the all clear from a medical test. When someone you thought might die is safe. When you finally put down a burden you have been carrying quietly for too long. The emotional system is reacting not just to the injury, but to the sudden change in the environment, from threat to safety. Tears in those moments may function as a reset, a way for your body to physically mark the end of an ordeal and signal to others. The worst part is over, but I still need support. There is also the way crying interacts with your own physiology. After a bout of intense emotional tears, many people experience fatigue, calm, or even a strange lightness. It feels like something has been released. Some researchers have proposed that tears might help modulate stress chemistry, either by small changes in what the body excretes or by triggering shifts in the nervous system once crying ends. Whether or not tears themselves carry away meaningful amounts of stress molecules, the act of crying clearly changes your internal state. Breathing patterns shift. Muscle tensions change. Heart rate rises and then falls. You go through a mini storm followed by a quiet From a group perspective, this storm then quiet is valuable. It shows others where you are in the arc of distress. Someone only beginning to cry may need immediate intervention. Someone already subsiding into post-crying calm may need space, listening, or practical help rather than urgent de-escalation. Tears turn your internal timeline into a visible process. A wise group can read that process and respond appropriately. All of this starts to explain why humans might be the only animals that evolved such conspicuous emotional tears. We are unusual in how much our survival has depended on complex, long-term social bonds rather than simple transient alliances. We raise children for years, work in coordinated groups, maintain relationships over decades, and rely on those relationships during crises. Emotional tears suit a species that spends a lot of time negotiating states like trust, guilt, grief, reconciliation, and relief. Foolish, noticed. There is another layer that often goes unnoticed. Culture. Not every culture encourages public crying. Some train children to suppress tears, equating crying with weakness or shame. Others embrace it as a natural part of emotional life. Yet even in cultures where tears are stigmatized, people still cry, often in private or in tightly controlled contexts, but the basic capacity persists. That persistence hints that the mechanism is robust enough that social norms can reshape where and when it appears, but not erase it. You can see the tension between biology and culture in how people talk about their own tears. Many describe embarrassment, frustration at crying in front of others, or a sense that they have betrayed themselves. Yet those same people will often say they feel closer to someone after seeing that person cry. Tears can deepen a relationship faster than almost any other kind of signal. That is a strange dynamic. The very thing that feels humiliating to the individual can be bonding for the group. It is also worth noticing how finely tuned human perception is to tears. You can see tiny changes in moisture around someone's eyes, and your brain instantly reads the emotional context. The difference between someone who has tears in their eyes and someone who is actively sobbing is obvious even at a distance. We have built entire art forms around this: the close-up shot of a single tear in a film, the written description of someone on the verge of tears. Our culture has amplified a signal that biology made hard to ignore in the first place. Ahem. If you step back and look at the full picture, emotional crying is one more example of human bodies using visible, involuntary signals to manage an invisible internal reality. Blushing does this for social embarrassment. Shaking does it for fear. Tears do it for large, complex emotions that are either too intense to contain or too important to keep hidden. In every case, the body exposes a vulnerability to others, gambling that the benefit, comfort, protection, de-escalation, understanding, will outweigh the cost of being seen. There is a final twist. The fact that animals do not seem to cry emotional tears the way we do does not mean their emotional lives are smaller. It means they evolved different signaling systems for distress and connection. Body postures, vocalizations, sense. Humans took those systems and layered something uniquely visible over them: water in the eyes. That addition fits our particular niche, a creature who uses faces, language, and long-term relationships to survive. So when you think about yourself crying, whether quietly alone or in front of someone else, you can treat it as a failure of composure if you want. Or you can recognize it as a very old survival pattern. Your body is taking whatever is happening inside you and making it impossible to fully hide. It is pulling other people into the problem whether you plan to or not. It is betting that if your pain is seen, your chance of not carrying it entirely alone will go up. And in a species that has survived mostly by not doing things alone, that is a reasonable bet.